Hello, my name is Gabby and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, then welcome to my channel, and today's video is going to be my Fall 2022 TBR. Fall is definitely one of my favorite seasons to build TBRs for. I feel like I might say that every season, but it's always true. That being said, my summer TBR did not go as planned, not at all, and I am 1000% ready for like a fresh new group of books to make its way into my life. Obviously, I wanted some spooky books, and I wanted some horror elements and beings. Supernatural is the word that I am looking for here. I also wanted some mystery, and then I just wanted some other books that my heart is telling me will be good for the season. And that is the main one. It is the most important and is the driving force behind all of my decisions here. So with that, content warnings for all of the books that I talk about today will be linked down in the description below. We are going to go in alphabetical order, and let's go ahead and get into it. So the first book that I'm going to be talking about today is Gallant by V.E. Schwab. This follows our main character Olivia, who receives a letter telling her to come home to Gallant, but when she arrives, no one is expecting her. However, this is the first place that actually feels like home to her, so she refuses to leave, and she is determined to figure out all of the secrets that Gallant has to offer. It's been a little bit of a while since I've read a V.E. Schwab book, even though I fully intend to make my way through all of the books eventually. We'll get there one day, and this is a book that definitely needs to be checked off that list in order for that to happen. I feel like there's going to be a lot of mystery here, like worked into the story, and I'm excited to see all of the discoveries. We'll talk about the series later on in this video, but one of my favorite parts of This Poison Heart by Kalynn Bayron was just exploring the house in that story and all of the secrets that it had to offer. And I feel like this one might go in a similar direction. I feel like the story is going to have some darker elements to it as well. There's a lot of talk about shadows in here, and the artwork and all of the imagery is gorgeous, and it also just screams fall to me. And I do think that this book is going to be a great time. I mean, V.E. Schwab usually is for me. So next up in this video is Gilded by Marissa Meyer. This is a Rumpelstiltskin retelling. There's undead hunters, ghouls, phantoms, curses, ravens. Marissa Meyer was one of the authors that got me into reading. Renegades is one of, if not my favorite book of all time. And then I also love the Lunar Chronicles and Heartless. The only one that I was unsure of was Instant Karma, and I actually ended up not reading that one after I realized that I didn't like what I was reading. I don't think I made it very far, but even though I didn't make it that far, that is definitely an experience I don't want to repeat because my brain just doesn't even know what to do with it. I typically enjoy fairy tale retellings, and this definitely feels like we're back in the Lunar Chronicles and Heartless area. I have a lot of feelings going into this book. I'm super excited, I'm really nervous, and I just need this to be a 5-star, and hopefully it will be. And the next book on this TBR is Good Omens by Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett. This is supposed to be like a really fun comedy about an angel and a demon teaming up to stop the apocalypse by finding and killing the Antichrist. And that's exactly what I want. That's exactly what I'm looking for from this, and I just want to have a good time. I'm curious about and interested to see the balance between the humor and the darker elements of the story. When it's done well, this is something that I really love. I haven't seen or really heard anything or just interacted with the live action version of this story in any way, but I do know that it does have that. And the angel and the demon and the apocalypse stuff should all be a fun time for the fall, specifically for October, but we'll see. And next up is Kingdom of Souls by Rena Barron. This follows our main character Ara, who is the heir to lines of powerful witch doctors. She longs for magic of her own, but she ultimately fails to be enough for her family's legacy under the eyes of her powerful mother. When the children in the kingdom start to disappear, Ara turns to a dangerous and forbidden ritual, but the power unveils a betrayal while the darkness threatens to consume them all. This book has been on my TBR for so long, and I feel like this is going to be a great time for it. There's darkness and magic. There's probably some mystery elements in there somewhere, like with the disappearing children and with the betrayal. I'm super curious to see what kind of darkness and other twists and reveals this book has to offer. And like I said, it's just been on my TBR for a long time. I really want to read it, and I really want that to happen soon. And next up is Kingdom of the Wicked by Kerri Maniscalco. This follows twin sisters Amelia and Victoria, who are secret witches living amongst humans. One day after Victoria misses dinner service at their family's restaurant, Amelia finds her body severely desecrated. Amelia then sets out to find her sister's murderer, even if it means using a dark and forbidden magic. I feel like I see this book everywhere, and I know that it's super hyped, and I would like to be a part of that. There's also like a Prince of Hell in here, so yeah, there's a lot that seems perfect for the fall to me, including the cover. I am also very much interested in any romance situations that there may be in this story. It sounds like there may be some complex dynamics at the very least, and I always love that. There's also the murder mystery element to this. I have had a hard time with mysteries in the past, but recently I had a really good experience with them. And now that I've had that experience, I really want to keep that going, and hopefully this book ends up being a part of that. Next up is Last Night at the Telegraph Club by Malinda Lo. This takes place in the 1950s in San Francisco's Chinatown. It follows our main character who realizes that she's in love with another girl as they walk under the neon sign of a lesbian bar called the Telegraph Club. However, due to the time period and the setting, these two girls are not in a safe place to fall in love with one another, especially with deportation hovering over our main character's father despite his hard-won citizenship. And we follow these two girls as they risk everything for their love to take shape. This is one of the ones that my heart is telling me to go with. Everything about it sounds amazing, from the book description to what I've read from the writing style so far. And even though my heart did lead me to this book, I feel like this book could also destroy my heart. Am I ready for that? I like to think so, but let's face it, probably not. But if that does happen, then that's a positive, because that means that I care. And I really want this book to have that kind of impact on me, emotional pain or not. Next is Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. This follows our main character who receives a letter from her cousin begging someone to save her from a mysterious doom. So she goes to the High Place, which is a house in the distant Mexican countryside, where she finds her cousin's new, menacing, and alluring husband. This was a book that I knew that I wanted for the fall as soon as I found out about it. And I want this fall to be the fall that happens in. I've heard really good things about this. Once again, I'm excited to just find out about the house itself, and whatever other secrets this book has to unveil. And the title also has the word Gothic in it, and I love some Gothic imagery. The word spooky is also mentioned in the author blurb, and I'm just ready for all of it. Next is The Beautiful by Renée Ahdieh. This is a story that takes place in 1972 New Orleans, which is a city ruled by the dead. But for our main character Celine, New Orleans is a haven that she was forced to flee to. She gets taken into a convent and becomes immersed in the city's underworld as she catches the eye of its leader. However, after one of the women in the convent is found dead in his lair, Celine has to face her own suspicions, guilt, and attraction, as she becomes caught in the middle of an ancient feud between the darkest creatures of the night. This sounds so amazing. I'm so excited to see what the setting and the world itself has to offer. I've heard this one specifically isn't as vampire heavy as advertised, but I feel like since I know that going into it, I know where to place my expectations, because my expectations did have to be changed. But still, there are vampires and dark and mysterious themes to this. So I feel like this book does still have a lot to offer, even if it's not what I was originally expecting. The romance also sounds complicated and messy, and I love that, and I really just want to like throw myself into that dynamic. And I just really want to get into the series in general, because it sounds like it includes a lot of things that I have really loved in the past. And after The Beautiful is The City Beautiful by Aiden Polydoros. This is set in 1983 and follows our main character who dreams that he will one day have enough money to bring his mom and his sisters from the oppression that they face in Romania to America. However, his dream is about to fall from his grasp when his best friend becomes the latest victim of a large group of Jewish boys who are being murdered. While the rest of the city is celebrating the World's Fair, our main character is thrown into a nightmare of corruption and deceit, and also back into the arms of a dangerous boy from his past. These two must find the killer before the killer claims them next. Kind of like The Beautiful, I am really interested in the setting here, mostly just based on the cover because of like the gold and the Ferris wheel with like the black and the red. I just really love the aesthetic of this cover, basically. This is another murder mystery, and it did not register in my mind that I have a lot of murder mysteries in this TBR until right now, which is very scary for a genre that I have a complicated history with. I've also heard that this is a pretty dark story, so once again I am going to advertise that the content warnings for all of the books that I talk about today will be linked down in the description below. This was one of the few new releases that I kept up with prior to its release. I don't know how new it is now, but it was a thing in the past. So my hopes are very high for this, and I do think that they will be met here. Next is The Girl from the Well by Rin Chupeco. This follows our main character Okiku, who follows the world freeing the spirits of the murdered and killing their killers as she was once a victim herself. One day she meets a boy named Tark who has an evil lurking beneath his skin. All of his neighbors may fear him, but our main character knows that he just needs to be freed from the demon that clings to him. However, if that demon dies, so will he. So after reading The Never Tilting World by Rin Chupeco a few years ago now, I went out and bought all of their other books. And this was one of the ones that I bought. It has been a few years since I've read anything by this author, which was a huge mistake, especially when it comes to the sequel for The Never Tilting World, because I really enjoyed it and I need to read that sequel. But I mean, just look at this cover. It screams horror, so it screams fall. And I also do like that it's one of the shorter books on this TBR because I like having that variety in my life. And I am just excited to dive back into this author's stories and writing, and hopefully this book will be the start of a marathon of sorts of them, because there are just a lot of really cool sounding stories in there. So next up is The Lesbiana's Guide to Catholic School by Sonora Reyes. This follows our main character Yami, who is outed by her crush and ex-best friend at her previous school. Now at her new Catholic school, Yami has no intentions to come out or to fall in love. However, that is easier said than done, as the only openly queer girl at her school is annoyingly perfect. But if word ends up getting back to her mom, Yami could face much worse than rejection. I couldn't stop thinking about this book before I hauled it, I couldn't stop thinking about this book when I hauled it, and I still can't stop thinking about this book now that it's hauled. And I don't know, there's definitely like an academia thing involved here, and that can be related to the fall. So I'm going to run with it, because this is a contemporary, and specifically a contemporary romance that I think is going to really work for me. I just need to read this book in order to make my mind happy, and hopefully I'll be thinking about this book in a good way after being read as I've thought about it prior. So next up is The Sunbearer Trials by Aiden Thomas. At the beginning of each decade, the sun's power must be replenished in order to keep the evil obsidian gods at bay. 10 semi-DOCs are chosen to compete in the Sunbearer Trials, where the loser is sacrificed so that their body may protect everyone for the next 10 years. Our main character Tio is the trans son of the goddess of birds, and he has never really worried about the trials except for worrying about others in relation to the trials. However, that all changes when he gets chosen to compete against opponents who are better trained and more powerful than himself. So Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas was not only my favorite fall read last year, but it was my favorite read of the whole year. So of course I had to include this book on this TBR. I also just need to read this because of Cemetery Boys, but also because of this book's own description. It just sounds so amazing, and it's probably at the top of my 5-star predictions list. As for how this book goes with the fall, you know, I don't really know yet. Either way, I desperately need this book in my life, so it's here on this TBR. And the final book for this TBR is This Wicked Fate by Kalynn Bayron, which is the sequel to This Poison Heart. This Poison Heart follows our main character who has a hidden power over plants. When she inherits a house from her birth mother, she also gains a space to test out her powers. But as she begins to bring the garden back to life, she uncovers that she has also inherited a dark secret, and her ancestors are not going to let her be until she accepts that she is the keeper of the dark power of the poison garden. I mentioned that we would be talking about this series at the beginning of the video, and we are finally here. I don't know if it was the music that I was listening to while reading this Poison Heart, but I got some major fall vibes from a book that takes place in the summer. There's magic and supernatural elements, and once again, just the house and the mystery. And I really love the romance and the relationships, both the sweet and adorable, and also the complex. I mean, this Poison Heart is one of my favorite books that I've read so far this year, so there's not a lot that I didn't love about it. But I will say, I did want a little bit more from the ending of that book, and that's what this is for. And I am so ready to see where everything is going to go. I'm also going to link the music that I listened to while reading that book down in the description below, because I think it might be making a return here. And then I also may use it for other books throughout the season as well, and I just like it, so we'll see. Okay, so those are all of the books that I have for this TBR. Hopefully I'll end up finishing more of these than I did in the summer, but the goal is to have options. And I feel like I definitely do have some great options here. So with that, thank you all so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, and answer the question that'll be around here if you want to do that. And hopefully I will see you here next time. Bye!